Welcome to the damage report for December 9, 2024, and effective immediately, everything that was announced, banned, limited, released off of the ban list is effective right now. So I hope that in the future they give us more of these little early gifts, I guess for this season, an early Christmas present of a ban list announced at events. It's going to make events even more exciting, maybe surprise. I mean, for the last few times they have been announcing the ban list at events. And this time, it's even cooler that they announced it in person, card for card. Post-finals, here you go, guys. This is the bands you guys have been waiting for. Fire decks, oh my god, taking a huge hit. Of course, in this damage report, we're going to go over the context, the entire ban list, and kind of our overall thoughts about them. And the actual damage report 1, 2, and 3, not as much damage this time around, but we can still go over the lines that were cut and new lines that you can use to replace them. And of course, the top tier potential, what are the best decks moving forward, and what are some hidden sleeper decks as well. So make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and let's go. So for our ban cards, we have Original Sinful Spoils, Snake Eye, Gimmick Puppet, Nightmare, and Jowgen the Spiritualist, two of which are super floodgate cards, and the other one is the combo piece. Original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye essentially is the bridge piece to all level 1 fire decks through the Sinful Spoil engine, and having that gone, now completely caters the Diabell Star towards Azamina cards and White Forest cards. So that's going to be one full bridge that we are going to lose in Snake Eye decks. Well, Snake Eye decks can still do Snake Eye things. Don't get me wrong. We'll talk about that in a second. Gimmick Puppet of Nightmare, a generic loss overall for the branded archetype, more so than the actual Gimmick Puppet deck themselves. As for Jowgen, more for a stun deck hit. I think it's also because it's a light spellcaster. That's why they kind of took that away. And so you're going to see less and less of these stun decks, and more people able to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And speaking of people able to play Yu-Gi-Oh! For limited cards, we have Tenpai, Chundrai, Phantom of Yubel, Sangen, Kaiman, and Zodiac Barrage going up to 1. Very interesting for the Chandra and Yubel. The crowd just went wild when those two cards were announced. People apparently really dislike the freeness of these cards. Chandra being the free win on the normal summon. It's almost as if it became the normal summon Alistair. It's just normal summon out Chandra and win the game. And Kaiman, those two cards are significant hits. We'll talk about that in the first damage report. Zodiac Barrage, I thought that they were going to give back like Rapier before they give this card back, but hey, a Zodiac card was called out, and now you have Zodiac Barrage, but we still don't have Dryden. As for semi-limits, Cyberjar, not going to do anything. Semi-limits on the Jackalope, Tsuchinoko, Eva. I mean, we're getting close to a point where we can play Danger Thunder Dragon, but we only have one copy of White and Black Dragon, so that's still going to be affected pretty immensely because those were some of the key cards to create those crazy end boards. Eva at 2, maybe you're going to see more Drytrons come up in the future, maybe more fairy-based decks, and Performer Pole, Monkey Board. Are we going to see Electromite coming out soon? Seems like this is like that whole countdown theory of, oh, they're giving us one pendulum at a time, and then when it matters most, Electromite will be the one showing up. And as for the release, it's a very big release, but 4 of these are essentially the same card. It's going to be the entire Dragon Ruler package. You can technically build full-on Dragon Rulers right now if you want to. Thunder Dragon Colossus is now at 3. I am going to make Thunder Dragon a pet deck of mine. You can play Bestial Thunder Dragon. You can play a lot of different variants that are basically chaos-based decks with Thunder Dragons. And with Colossus at such a high number, if you have a deck that requires searching, then Colossus might be the one that's going to shut you down. Since Bonfire didn't get touched, that's also going to be a very big part of this. Lunalight Tigers back to 3. We have Ib at 3. Opening of Spirit Gates kind of loosens it up a little bit for the Yubel player to have a different kind of follow-up that's not just going to be the monster effect swapper. And because of the loss of Original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye, and I kind of called it out in the prediction, I directly called it out in the prediction. They were going to give us back some form of Airlifter, and they gave Airlifter to 3 since the Original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye no longer bridges the whole thing. So the Wanted package is strictly just for Azamina now, and Azamina Fiendsmith. Do you still want to play that in your Rescue Ace deck? You guys let me know, but I still think Rescue Ace is really powerful. With triple Airlifter, it's still a crazy deck. Now for winners and losers, winners 100%, we have the Thunder Dragon package going to like full-on triple Colossus. The Fenrir and the Engraver for Fiendsmith and Kashtira, respectively, those are still available. They were all highly speculated that they were going to take a hit, but they did not, especially the Fenrir side. The Kashtira side, they're going to be around for a while. You're going to have Kashtira, Fiendsmith, and you're also going to have Ryziel, Fiendsmith, thanks to the popularity that Triff pushed forward and the way that he played it. And you guys should 100% check out his deck profile because he went through the details. It's a pretty raw one, but pay attention. You're going to learn a thing or two that is just high level knowledge. As for Tenpai, it's a win for the community. Yes, that Tenpai completely slaughtered on this list. Not much you can do about it, but hey, it's good that you don't have like, this is the normal summon win the game kind of deal. Honestly, Tenpai, you know what it felt like? It felt like Misty in the Pokemon TCG pocket, and they just flip the two heads and you just auto lose. Tenpai feels like that. It doesn't feel very fun playing against them. And Pankrotop's 3 side decking is going to feel amazing with this card. It's such a flexible card, hitting front row, hitting back row, hitting field spell, and it's also just a very big monster that can punch over the SP Little Knight. Yeah, talk about, you know, one of the most flexible monsters available. Losers, I think we talked about most of these in terms of the ban slot. Original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye, the bridging for this fire monster, it's going to be very painful. There's going to be the Gimmick Puppet lock that's going to be gone, but Gimmick Puppet lock is not the only lock that branders are able to do, but it was the most generic one they wanted to push because it's the one with the least amount of counters when it is successful. The other ones, even if they are successful, there are counter plays to them, and we can talk about that when we get there. And there's Jowgen for the stun locking, and Yubel, if they get unicorned, it's gonna hurt a lot this time because Phantom Yubel is definitely being the first card to go out of the extra deck. Alright, starting with Tenpai Dragon, damage report number 1, they lose 2 Tundra and 2 Sangen Kaiman, which is ridiculously huge. Deck repairs, I think you might have to consider using multiple copies of Doradora. If you're only playing 1 Genroku, it's time to shove it up to 2 Genrokus. If you're only already playing 2 Genrokus, maybe it's time to up the count of Fadra as well. A lot of people put Fadra to 1, and now it might be the time to put Fadra to 2 to 3. I don't know. It's a hard fix for you guys because what you're losing right now is your tuner. So your replacement tuner is Genroku. There might be other dragons you can consider. I'm not sure if there's fire dragons you can consider as the replacement monster. And alternatively, there's also the continuous spell of Sangen Furo. Do you guys know what that card does? Well, whenever a monster that battles one of your fire dragons, if something gets destroyed by battle, you summon that monster back in defense position. There might be an opportunity there. And also during the end phase, you get to reset one of your Sangen spell or trap, I believe. And therefore, that's one slow way for you to recycle your Sangen Kaiman. I don't think it's that ideal because I think you have to wait till your opponent, end phase of your opponent's turn. It's a little weird, but it's definitely a bit more interesting to give you an actual follow-up rather than just straight up just not have Kaiman at all. In terms of the combo losses, yes, they can still one-shot you. They can still do a shifter OTK. However, if they miss lethal on a shifter OTK, they miss it, they have almost no follow-up. They're solely reliant on using Genroku as their tuner now to kind of bridge into the actual synchro plays. Their extra deck will be completely useless if they can't get that Genroku, which gives you a new thing to hit, and it's obviously not as fast, okay? But Genroku can't, tag out into a Chandra. They can't tag into a different tuner. It makes life a lot more difficult now for them. Not to mention that if they burn their Kaiman earlier, they're gonna have to find some way to revive. Maybe they'll play Monster Reborn, like spell card Monster Reborn to special summon back their monster. That is an option. It's also a quick play spell. I think there are options for this deck to repair itself, but it's gonna be kind of diving outside of the realms of Tenpai and more into generic cards that we haven't really truly looked at. So be careful. The other thing that's gonna completely destroy this matchup, Chandra getting DD Crowed. Getting that card banished is going to be a rough time. Genroku is also going to be a lesser replacement even further. So finally, I guess in terms of my final remarks, it's a win for the community because people really did not like the normal summon of Chandra for game. There's so many little skits about it already on YouTube. And we get it. It's a menace. It's a really bad way to introduce anyone into the game. And for the people that went into the game starting with this deck, it's also not going to let them pivot to the other decks because all they have learned is I play this card, my opponent can't play games. I play this card, my opponent has no reaction. Rather than learning the intricacies of chaining. So the pivot for people that started with Tenpai going to other decks is going to be much harder. Now for the Sinful Spoil, Snake Eye, and Fire damage report, they lost one copy of original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye. What does that ultimately do to these decks? The entirety of bridging into your Rescue Ace Hydrant, Snake Eye Ash Oak Poplar, your Phoenix King or Fire King Ponix, that's gone, and Infernoid Decatron also going to take a massive hit. So the bridging of Wanted or Witch into these cards, that's essentially almost like a 6-card engine hit for those decks. It's immense, and it's also a draw card that they're also not going to be able to play now. So in terms of deck repair for Snake Eye in particular, look, Snake Eye, they can still combo. If they start with an Ash into Poplar, Poplar into Field Spell, notice that the original combo actually did not play original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye. Original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye was a follow-up card. Therefore, they're losing consistency. If you hit them with hand traps now, that's one card you don't have to worry about. Like, Poplar loses a lot of effectiveness due to that one particular play, and the follow-up of which only bridges into Azumina, does not bridge back into Snake Eye. Very, very big thing about that. But if you want to bridge your Snake Eye cards into, say, the Sinful Spoil, that's still possible because of dramatic Snake Eye Chase. That can put one of your Diabell Star, the Black Witch, into the back row and end phase summon it onto the field. However, that's still kind of slow. You can get a Wanted into the back, but ideally, you might want to consider maybe some of the Sinful Spoil trap cards. Like currently for the Chimera players and for some of the other players that are also playing the Azumina package, they are choosing to play one of the Morian, the one that Book of Moons your opponent's special summon monster. That one's actually very popular among Illusion players, but even among Snake Eye trap cards, there's also one that pushes your opponent's monster into the spell and trap zone. Also worth considering for your Poplar search, use that to get a level of disruption, or you can even use the other trap card from Sinful Spoils that essentially acts as an on-field negation on any card. These are ways that you can kind of pivot. It changes up your board, but those cards aren't any weaker. They're still very strong. You just have to take the time to explore them now. So that's what I'm saying here. So aside from the loss of the bridging, the combo of Snake Eye is still there. They can still do Fiendsmith combo with the regular stuff they have, and since the Fiendsmith package was completely untouched, it's likely that people might just jump into playing Fiendsmith Snake Eye once again as one of the viable options. So, regular combo, still there. Wanted Deception now truly is an Azumina, White Forest cards, and it's probably going to push it more towards that in Supreme Darkness. But yeah, that's all I have for this deck. Okay, so for other hits, we got Jalgan the Spiritualist and Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. Both of these hits aim towards one thing: removal of Floodgate-esque plays against your opponent. I think Jalgan the Spiritualist had some plays with the future Azumina with White Forest cards. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, or just leave it down in the comment section. I would like to know more about that, but having this gone maybe makes the playing field a lot more fun overall, especially with Gimmick Puppet being gone. I mean, if you want to keep hitting people with Gimmick Puppet, lock people out, you can play Ito. Yeah, your opponent can't summon, but your opponent also can technically get rid of this card. Although, I have to say, isn't this whole thing getting kind of washed out anyways? Malice players, they main deck the Bestial stuff, making this play even harder than it is to actually execute. And Ito is outable because a lot of people will play Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse to wipe down the entire board. So correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe this hit isn't, the best thing because it kind of phased out due to power creeping a little bit. But regardless, what about stun players? What can they do about losing their Jalgan and their Golgondas and their Moon Mirror Shields? Well, they can play Water Barrier Statue. Maybe they'll lose to Mermail, sure. But will it really matter? I don't know. Overall, it seems like the meta isn't aiming in that direction. But Supreme Darkness does give us more cards, so yeah, that's all I can really say. They're promoting more interaction. Just look at Pankratops being like unlimited for us. It's going to give our side deck just triple Pankratops. Maybe we're even going to see Pankratops in Tenpai to crack a board. It is an option. It is a free summon. It's not going to disrupt their natural flow. So, people, please come back to locals because there has been a bit of a drought of players because people really did not enjoy the format. And for the part that you've been waiting for, the tier list potential. Tier list potential only truly means their expectation to perform, not where their true standings are. True standings, you're going to have to wait for more results. But one thing that we do have results on, Ryzeal, Fiendsmith, Ryzeal variants, they have performed so well at YCS Anaheim, and since they are not affected by the ban list, I expect them to stay at the very top tier in terms of performance. So yeah, Ryzeal is all the way up there. Malice is also all the way up there. Their performance at the YCS Anaheim was also not bad at all. Maybe some of the feature matches not the best ones to kind of represent it, but they still made a lot of the top cuts. So don't underestimate this deck. And then if you want to stick with the cards you already own for the past year, Cashier and Fiendsmith were the two decks you went in for. Guess what? Cashier, Fiendsmith, still one of the top decks. Neither core got hit. There you go. And then I have Fire King. I have a strong sense that Fire Kings are still going to be able to perform. Sure, they're not going to be able to play the Azamina Snake Eye package. I mean, they technically still could, if you ask me. You technically still can play some of the package, but they're not going to bridge into each other. You can use it to gain a negate, but is that negate worth it, or is it just better to get more consistency out of your existing Fire King cards? And we've seen pure Fire Kings perform very well. Could have knocked it down a tier potentially, but I still am a strong believer of the Fire Kings. Then there's Centurion Bystials. It's just one of those decks that if you know how to play it, it's going to be one of the most annoying decks available. However, did they actually get hit by anything? They might have gotten slightly power crept a little bit because of Ryzeal being introduced into the format, where the interaction of constantly being able to blow up your cards make it a lot more difficult for Centurion to play, and they're going to need some way to out the Ryzeals first. But I think that's a deck that can pivot and adapt. Then there's Fiendsmith, or Fiendsmith Musket if you want to be more specific, another very strong contender. And then there's going to be White Force Azamina. That's more of a future deck post Supreme Darkness, because you're going to be able to play the illusions a little bit better. Mix the illusions with the spellcaster. It's going to be an insane deck. High tier potential. Labyrinth is still all the way up there, and booking stuff with Daruma Karma Cannon is going to be another very big thing available to people. Then there's Yubel Fiendsmith. Knocked down a whole tier potential because of one copy of the Phantom of Yubel. I mean, it's a very big hit because Cashier wasn't hit, so you can still see people just splashing in some of the Cashier package with the Unicorn being able to rip one out. If they rip that that one potential Phantom of Yubel out of your extra deck, it is a rough time trying to get the extra body. You're not getting the extra body, so you're losing the extra body. However, because you also regain opening of the Spirit Gates, you got a little consistency back with the loss of your other card. It's like they punch you in the face and then they give you, a bag of gold or something like that. I'm very bad with analogy here. I am really tired because it's been non-stop content making for a while. Then high tier potential Chimera Fiendsmith Azamina. This is a deck that can still play the Azamina, can still play the Wanted package, because it never bridged into the original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye. It bridged into the trap cards, which makes it okay, and it also bridged into Fiendsmith to get the Chimera cards. And it only gets better because Supreme Darkness gives them Azamina LZ as a way to quick fusion their cards. So this is a deck that you should not sleep on too much. Yes, I am a fan of the deck, but it's not just me. It's just that there's a lot of potential backing it. OCGs occasionally have tops with this deck as well. Rescue Waves, high tier potential. Yeah, you have triple Airlifter, the card that people complained about the most. But the deck also lost one of the most important packages, the Witch package. But the Witch package is also able to push into some negates, so if you want to go for an easy access turbulence that's safe, they can still do it, and it still can provide you with a little bit of draw, but it's now kind of a little bit more focused towards using the Azamina cards as discard outlets, maybe for your preventer to revive some of your monsters. Mermaid Atlantean getting additional support as well, also very strong already. We have seen top tier players perform with this deck already. And then for high tier potential, we have Snake Eyes. Yes, they lost original Sinful Spoils Snake Eyes. Sure, it's one card, but it's a very big one. And it also makes the entire Witch package not as strong, and the deck is already kind of limited to the ground. You only have one Poplar, one Ash. You still have triple Bonfire, so you got the consistency, but you kind of lost access to your Snake Eye cards via Wanted, and that is a significant hit. So it's gonna be very difficult to kind of bridge the two together. Are there ways to kind of dig for these cards a little bit faster? You're gonna rely on those 1-for-1s. You're gonna have to rely on more cards to get there. And then there's high tier potential, Voiceless Voice. One Voiceless Voice did make the top tier of Anaheim. I'm wondering if they played the Ryziel, because in OCG they played Ryziel variants with Voiceless Voice. They do the voiceless stuff, and then they drop the Ryziel just to get a detonator onto the field. And it's kind of annoying, honestly, because they're protected with the Omni Negates from the Skull Guardian. So just keep that in mind. And as for hidden potential, and if you don't see the deck that you play, well, leave it down in the comment section. We can probably talk about it, or let the comment section also add into the mix here to give you their opinion as well. Hidden potential, Tenpai Dragon. I'm not going to write off this deck completely, because I do think there are things you are able to do with this deck. Sure, you're down to 1 Chandra. Are you locked out of reviving Chandra, or do you need something else? What about Monster Reborn, the spell card, quick play spell card, Monster Reborn? Can you revive Chandra? Is that an option, or is that going to make you brick even more? I don't know. Maybe you're kind of stuck taking a bit of a gamble there. And then there's also Memento. Memento honestly could deserve a higher tier spot here, because they have been performing very, very consistently. Also due to the fact that a lot of people don't know what their cards do, but seeing that Malice is added into the mix here, you're going to see a lot more shiftering on a lot of decks. And that's why I want to put it higher, and it probably deserves a higher spot. But for now, we're just going to work with the space we have. Drytron's still a very powerful card. I wonder if Drone Lockbird is going to be a mainstay for the format. If Drone Lockbird becomes a mainstay, then Drytron can just say goodbye. But Bystials are also part of the format now, thanks to Malice, which keeps Drytron in check, making it very difficult for them to play, unless somehow they drop an Eva into the graveyard, getting themselves the Herald Search really early on, and they're just able to play through stuff from there. And let's not forget about Exodia. Exodia is still around there, and also very just one of those sleeper decks that if you don't know what you're doing and they surprise you, your Furor losses that you main deck all become garbage. And then there's Thunder Dragon variants. Okay, Thunder Dragon, hear me out, guys. There's 2 lines you can play this, because if you have the Danger line, you can play the Tsuchinoko, or you can play Dino Thunder. And it's a lot easier to play Dino Thunder now. Except that it's just like, it's such a complicated deck for so little return. Your execution could just end up like screwing you over entirely. But I'm not going to give up on this deck. This deck seems really cool, and is one of the reasons why I stuck with Yu-Gi-Oh for so long. And there's Runic variants. Runics suffer so much from the existence of Ryziel. You might be like, why? Can't you just negate their stuff? Yeah, but every single time you activate a Runic spell, it's another chance for your opponent to just activate Ryziel Detonator and just blow up your field spell. And they'll outspeed you. If you have 3 cards, you need to play 3 cards to protect your card. You're losing cards every single time you do it. You're gonna run out of gas eventually, and then you're gonna lose. And if you try to like chain, I'll just chain Freezing Curse to it, it's not that simple, because they don't care. And also the Runic cards kind of play very poorly into Malice, because Malice cards getting banished, especially in the monsters, they just come back, and you just kind of set up their engine for them. They're getting pluses if you hit a rabbit. It doesn't feel very good. And then Branded's still Branded. I think this deck is still really good. Just, is it like a product of power creep so that it dropped a couple of tiers, or maybe it's a sleeper deck waiting to get better? But if your deck isn't mentioned here, well, leave it down in the comments section. I'd love to hear what deck you are trying to play, and maybe there's something that I missed. Well, leave it down in the comment section. I think we would all love to explore together, so that, you know, there's more decks to play. But by the looks of it, it seems like there's a lot of top tier potential and a lot of rogue options that can compete with the meta. And for once, I'm actually quite hopeful. So I feel pretty good. That's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell. Wish you guys best of luck in your cooking of your new deck list and getting ready for the upcoming tournaments. And I guess I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good day.